every situation, every circumstance. And let that love fill your heart, flood your being. Until it encompasses all that you are and enfolds you and expands you into an embrace of the heart that extends to those near you, your friends and your family, to your community. Here at Unity, your communities where you live, where you work. Feel that flow of love arising from the center of yourself and flowing out, touching, loving, tenderly supporting the life of all those who share this nation with you, the nations of the world, the creatures of the earth and of the seas. And this morning especially, let that love enfold the people and all living things on the islands of Japan, that they might know we are one with them in spirit and in love today. And let that love continue to expand into the universe and right back into the heart of God, from which it began. We pray together this morning with people from all over the world, wherever they might be gathering, at home, at church, in synagogue or mosque, in the fields or on the hillsides, knowing that in the breath, through the heart, we are truly one. The same life moves in us, loves through us, and awakens us to how we might most joyfully participate in this world and in life itself. And we can say this because divine love flows through my heart, enfolding and blessing the world. And will you say that with me? Divine love flows through my heart, enfolding and blessing the world. And again, divine love flows through my heart, enfolding and blessing the world. And one more time. Divine love flows through my heart, enfolding and blessing the world.
You gave Oh, the power of nature lifts us high. Oh, the power of nature in the deep blue sky. Oh, the power of nature is there.
With partners in life, visions of our own, dreams are unfolding from the
Seeds we've sown.
As we take the steps, all becomes so clear. We made this life's plan before we can hear.
Oh, the power of nature lifts us high. Oh, the power of nature in the deep blue sky. Oh, the power of nature is there. We're remembering the reason why. We're remembering above. We're remembering the reason why. We're remembering the love. Oh, the power of nature lifts us high. Oh, the power of nature in the deep blue sky. Oh, the power of nature is there. Oh, the power of nature lifts us high. Oh, the power of nature in the deep blue sky. Oh, the power of nature is there. Oh, the power of nature lifts us high. Oh, the power of nature in the deep blue sky. Oh, the power of nature is there. Oh, the power of nature is there.
You all look lovely this morning. Some of you may not know me. I recently became the community life minister here at Unity, which is an assistant minister position. And this is my first opportunity to kind of introduce myself to you. So as I talk with you this morning, I'm going to be sharing little bits of my journey and some of the things that I've learned along the way. Hopefully that'll help you get acquainted with me. And I'm also going to be sharing with you some of the things I've been realizing over the last few months of being deeply involved here in the transformation of this community, particularly through the Vision 2020 process. So let me begin. Our center has as we all know, been through a physical transformation. And as we have been going through this vision process, it began to become clear to me that we were now engaged in an internal transformation, the transformation of the spiritual community, that the community as well as the buildings were ready to go the next step, to find the next configuration that will carry us through the next stage of our journey together as a spiritual community. I first came to Unity back in the early 80s and was here for 5 years. And it was the perfect place for me at that time, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I do have the long view of where we have been in the past and how I feel the change coming now. So, with that said, I'm going to borrow this morning in my talk from a talk that Carol Ruth Knox gave when she was here. And she actually gave it a couple of times, and I gave it a couple of times in my church on Sundays. So it is a metaphor that has obviously spoken to me over time. And it's about the phases of the journey. And she broke it down into 3 simple phases. She called them victim, victor, and vehicle. And so when I look back at my own life, I grew up in the 40s and 50s when women basically expected to become wives and mothers and homemakers. And I never had any expectation of doing anything else. Women certainly didn't become ministers. So as I was in the first almost 30 years of my life, that was my expectation. But the fact was, this is the cup of my soul, of our soul, of soul period. I felt small, ordinary, kind of dense, not much light coming through. Most of my opinions were identical to those of the last person who'd talked to me because I didn't really trust my capacity to form an opinion or judgment on my own. Simple, basically carved by other people. And not very happy. Feeling that the power, everybody else had the power. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel that I had something significant to contribute, particularly to life. But I was going to be a good girl and raise my children and take care of my home and do what was expected of me. Sound familiar to anybody? Well, then one day, in the summer of 1970, all of a sudden, this thought came to me. Had to be divine grace. And it said, if you continue living the life that you're living now, what will it say on your tombstone? And the thought continued, she stuck it out. Well, as soon as I realized that, I was kind of horrified, that was the best I could hope of my one and only life, was that I was going to be a good girl and stick it out. That was a moment of awakening for me. I realized that if I wanted to have a life truly worth living, it was up to me to make it happen. Sitting around and waiting for somebody else to deliver it to me wasn't going to work. So that really began my path of beginning to answer the question, well, who am I? Other than who I've been told to be, who am I? What am I all about? What are my gifts or abilities? What do I have to contribute? What do I want? I didn't even think I'd had permission to want something. So the cup went away, and for the next 10 years or so, I worked on developing a bigger sense of self, one that was shiny inside and out, that reflected the light. I did a lot of healing work, a lot of reading, a lot of discovery, a lot of exploration, went to workshops and various things, tried to learn all that I could, and I was quite devoted to developing this self that was empowered, that was abundant, that was polished, that could contribute something meaningful and valuable to life. Does that sound familiar? And then one day, and by this time I had moved to California, was living in Lafayette, we had a pool in our backyard. And one afternoon I was walking from the pool down to the pump house, and my feet got away from me, and my foot hit something, and I flipped up into the air, and all of this happened in a split second, but in that second, time will expand, and in that second, as I'm flying through the air, upside down, the only thought that came to me is, here I've worked so hard to craft this shiny, polished life, and it's all going to come to an end with me head first in the garbage cans with my legs sticking out. In other words, who knows how the story is actually going to end? You don't have control. And so that kind of burst the bubble that it was really all about making something out of me. Well, if it wasn't just that, then what was the next step? I really didn't know. But I began to search now with real spiritual intent. I started coming to Unity. I was working with a Sufi teacher. My husband was participating in Native American ceremonies. So suddenly I was being fed from all of these spiritual streams. And what began to arise in me is something that Reverend David's been talking about the last few weeks. It was, well, what is my purpose? If it's not just about me, what am I here to do? And I was hoping for a telegram from God saying, here's your job description for life. Didn't get it. Wasn't coming. So I meditated and I prayed and I meditated. What is my purpose? What is it? Finally, this little voice spoke in my ear and said, why don't you see if you can find the joy this time? And I went, oh, I never would have thought of that. I thought I had to do something important, something that would require sacrifice and hard work and determination and, all of those good things. Find the joy? How do you do that? I didn't have a clue. Well, then Carol came along with this talk and introduced me to the third goblet. This is the vehicle or vessel goblet. And you'll notice there's a difference now. This one is transparent. The light shines through. You can see what's within as well as what's without. But there's no obstacles. The obstacles of self-concern have disappeared. And it sings. It's crystal. But there's something else about it. It's vulnerable. It can be shattered. The wooden cup you couldn't break very easily. Certainly the silver goblet wouldn't break. This one is so available that, in fact, its vulnerability is essential to its availability. Well, how do we endure that vulnerability in order to truly be of service, to let the light of God flow through us and overflow the chalice of our own heart, our soul? Well, that was the question that I had to answer. And the answer was in discovering that the path of service is the path of joy. Tagore, somebody gave me this on a thing to hang on my wall. Tagore wrote this: "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service is joy." Service is joy. Well, that's what I began to discover as I began to seek out paths of service. And certainly my Sufi teacher was huge on service. In fact, he said our waking thought every morning should be, "Please, may I be allowed to be of service this day." So I began to see that as I gave myself in service, what happened was a lightening of spirit, of my heart, that it was fun. That it was not only fun, it was actually joyful. And there was a kind of exuberance that came along with it. I think of the Snoopy's Happy Dance. Can you picture Snoopy's Happy Dance where he's in midair and his feet are going like this and his ears are flopping up and flying? That's how much fun I discovered it could be when I was doing things that truly were the outpouring of my heart into service. I looked up, in preparation for this talk, I looked up the word exuberance. Very interesting. Exuberance, or uberari is the root word. And it means out of abundance, out of fruitfulness. So exuberance is actually the natural expression of an inner state of abundance, of fruitfulness. How does that abundance manifest in me? Well, it manifests as gratitude. I've now come to a stage in my own journey where I'm grateful for all of it. Every single blessed second of my life. And I've had the full range, believe me, folks. You know, I haven't had any special dispensation that I got to do it the easy way this time. But every experience, every moment has shaped me, forged me, molded me, strengthened me, and made me like that crystal cup. So gratitude becomes the foundation for the exuberance that I feel when I have opportunities to give myself away. How do I do that? By practicing the presence of God. The shift is one of consciousness internally, so that whatever I am doing, washing the dishes, feeding the cat, cleaning the litter box, doing a Sunday service, teaching a class, whatever it is, now life is transparent to me like that glass. And I see the divine present in all that I do, and I serve it with love and gratitude. That's the shift. So that whatever I'm doing on behalf of the beloved. It's like being a mother with an infant. You're happy to do whatever it takes because you cherish this life that you've been given. Well, that's how I feel towards my life as a whole now. And the opportunity to see the divine in every moment, in every circumstance, is an ongoing blessing. It's a source of gratitude, and it evokes a kind of exuberant, playful joy. We end every service here with saying, have fun. Well, that's how we have fun. So, to come back to being here at Unity. As I was working with the teams, the design teams, over the last few months, I've been going to a lot of meetings, which has been fun. Good thing. I love meetings. And I began to notice something. Unity, as we know, both as an international ministry and at this center too, has really been so powerful in helping people to heal and to come to wholeness and to understand the presence of love that dwells within them and how to begin to let that flow through and out into the world. But if you even look at how our building was before we transformed it, it was closed in, it was inward focused. We didn't have blinds or windows open to the outside. There was no extension upward. It was contained, and the focus was within. We transformed the buildings. Now we are open to the world around us and, to that above us. And it's interesting because our cupola is like a cup, upside down, but with windows so that the light flows in, and at night the light flows out. We have expanded and opened to our connection to the world around us. Well, this is what I was hearing in the meetings as well. I kept looking for what is that vision that describes what we're trying to manifest now. And it came to me finally that it really is opening to the path of service, going that next step between the holding of the self to giving it away. Giving it away in love, in joy, in play, and making a difference in our world. We have opened to the world physically, now we get to open to our world spiritually. And the way we do that is by intentionally and consciously being of service. Now, people here volunteer like crazy. I've never seen so much volunteering. It's awesome, truly awesome. But I want to point out that volunteering is not necessarily service, although service can be volunteering. It's service when it comes from that place of joy inside. Even Mother Teresa told her novitiates in Calcutta, if you wake up in the morning and you're not filled with joy at being here, go home. This is not your place of service. So we want to find the joy this time. And we want to give ourselves to something greater. We want to shine our light. We want to radiate that love out into the world. So I'm hoping now that perhaps my tombstone will say, she found the joy this time. And I'd like to close with the chalice prayer. If you just close your eyes and join with me in this as I do this. See if this can fit for you. Beloved presence, to thee I raise my whole being, a vessel emptied of self. Accept, O Lord, this my emptiness, and so fill it with thyself, with thy light, thy life, thy love, that these thy precious gifts, may overflow the chalice of my heart and overflow into the hearts of all those with whom I come in contact this day, revealing unto them the beauty of thy joy and wholeness and the serenity of thy peace. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Suzanne. That was great. It's nice to hear more about your background and sharing that with us. Thank you. A full chalice. If you would like prayer support for challenges and or celebrations, our heart ministers will be available after the service in here or on the patio, and again also in the community room. Our heart ministers are wearing the lavender stole. You're also invited to place a prayer request in our prayer box, which is in the foyer and also in the book center, and we will be praying with you throughout this week. So now it's time to change energy, and we're going to do that by doing our prosperity celebration, which means, I think, a good thing to do. I will take my tithe here, and I would like to remind you, invite you to get your tithes and offerings in your hand, and be aware that God is the source of all our good. If you are doing a love and action donation, please use the envelopes that are in the seat in front of you. So together we say, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I'm truly grateful. And the ushers will be coming up towards the end of this next song.
Our hearts beat the rhythm of joy. We'll live through this world of illusion. Our love is too strong to destroy. And stand upon a different land, where all the unanswered questions can be found in the palm of your hand. Let's ring out the bells of freedom. Our hearts beat the rhythm of joy. We'll live through this world of illusion. Our love is too strong to destroy. And the rivers in the valley flow, and the rainbow never ends for those waiting on silver shores. We'll find our peace where truth begins. Let's ring out the bells of freedom. Our hearts beat the rhythm of joy. We'll live through this world of illusion. Our love is too strong to destroy. Where the stories I never heard are filling my heart with gold from the sweet song of the bird. We'll soar like the eagle, dance in the wind. We'll find our peace where truth begins. Let's ring out the bells of freedom. Our hearts beat the rhythm of joy. We'll live through this world of illusion. Our love is too strong to destroy. Let's ring out the bells of freedom. Our hearts beat the rhythm of joy. We'll live through this world of illusion. Our love is too strong to destroy. Let's ring out the bells of freedom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, our children are busy making cards for something, so we're going to bless them, and then we're going to do the prosperity celebration. So let's warm our hands up together, send our energy to the children, and to the children we say, children, you are loved, special, and important. God loves you, and so do we. We bless this offering. We give thanks for these gifts and commit them to expanding the consciousness of love in the world. Thank you. Now, if we'll stand and join together so we can do our prayer of protection. And together we say, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And the peace song? You are the love and the light and the peace in the world right now. So let your light shine and have fun.
You're doing great.